You're with the best and the brightest, but there were no mechanisms set up for people to actually meet each other. It was very difficult, particularly for a woman, to approach a man at an event like this, because again, it's not like everybody's in college, right? Most of the people there are married, and striking up a conversation for me as a woman to approach a married man, I feel maybe I'm too traditional, but I feel like it's inappropriate and I don't want to do that. And it's a little uncomfortable. It was extremely challenging. For being a networking expert, I found I couldn't get my footing at that conference.
The Love and Order Podcast with your host, LawyerLimor. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed on this podcast are not legal advice that can be relied on. They are based solely on the limited information provided. These opinions do not create any attorney-client relationship. Those seeking legal advice should contact an attorney in the appropriate jurisdiction and practice area.
We're going to start recording this episode because Krista and I can talk for hours and hours and hours, compliments left and right. And if you look at her, let me tell you guys, if you're watching on YouTube, she just texted me and said, I'm on and my hair looks crazy. What she meant was I'm on and I look like Farrah Fawcett. But okay, whatever, Krista. So we are back with Love and Order. And of course, I have to say we are 2 weeks into the turmoil in the Middle East, and our love and our prayers and our thoughts are with those on the side of good. Okay, the side of
That's a good way to say that, Limor.
Yes, the side of humanity. And I listen, my listeners are very sophisticated, very smart, and I don't even think you have to be so smart and knowledgeable about anything to know good versus evil and to be able to identify it. So that's all I will say. I think we need to touch on public comments about controversial issues in this episode, and we will. So let me first introduce Krista Parkinson. Listen, I have a love affair with Krista because we met, we'll get into how we met, but we basically met networking while she was doing what she does. And it was like two magnets just coming together. We just saw each other like, hi, I like you. Sit next to me. Let's talk. And it just blossomed into this, I don't even know how many years it's been. 7.
10. It's been at least 10, maybe more.
It's been at least 10, maybe more. So this is Krista Parkinson. I like to introduce her as this networking guru, right? I like to call my guests gurus in their space because if you weren't, I wouldn't have you on, to be honest. And what I love about Krista is when you go to her bio on her website, I mean, this is what she's all about. Land your dream job without the fancy connections. Okay. That is what she's all about. Krista, give us your, there's a lot going on with you and you have an incredible resume. Your trajectory in this space is so fun and entertaining to listen to. Tony Hawk, all these different things. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about how you got where you are now?
Sure. Well, I'll start with what I do now and we'll back it up. So thank you for the intro. I'm Krista Parkinson. I am founder of my own company, My Grads Get Jobs, helping 20-somethings land their first jobs in the entertainment business. And so to date, I've helped about 1,000 people get hired in the entertainment business as interns, entry-level employees, coordinators. And in the last couple of years, I've had people land jobs in the beauty space, the digital space, sports. I've got a client who's in the NFL. So I've branched out to other areas, and I like to call them glamour industries. Any type of job that you want that is not at your college career fair in a booth is the type of job that I can help you get. Because that's the truth of the matter, right? If you want to work in the entertainment business, the cool jobs are not soliciting. The cool jobs, you have to actively pursue those. So anyway, I've been doing this for 7 years, which has been fantastic. But to back it all up, I do have the tagline, I can help you get hired in Hollywood without fancy connections, because I didn't have fancy connections. I grew up in the Coachella Valley. My family had lived there for a long time. My grandfather, who I think is the ultimate networker, was the doctor, and he delivered a lot of patients, a lot of kids in the Coachella Valley. And so he knew a lot of people, but he networked naturally, meaning he genuinely was curious. He cared about people. And, when we think of networking, you often think of, what can I get from this relationship? I need something. I want something. That is not what networking is about. Networking is about what you can give, not what you can get. Because by giving, you build relationships, not by necessarily taking. It's like a bank account, right? You have to put in a few deposits before you can ask for any money in return. So anyway, I grew up in the Coachella Valley, went to school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do for a living. But I knew I wanted to work in the entertainment space. I had a degree in broadcast communications, and I thought, I want to be Debbie Matenopoulos on The View, because The View was really big at that time. And I was about the same age as Debbie. And I was like, how'd she get that job? But then I realized with a broadcast journalism degree, you have to move to a small town in a small market and grow, like in local news. Well, I'm from a small town. I never wanted to live in a small town again, so that was out for me. So I moved to LA, and I started faxing my resume around. I was looking at Variety and The Hollywood Reporter. I was taking informational meetings with people, and I was like, I didn't even know what that was. But my grandfather called me one day, and he said, Krista, I want you to set up an introductory meeting with Richard Rosenberg. And my grandfather taught me a lot about networking. He said, how I had my hair cut by the same guy, Victor Honig? Well, Victor, when he passed away, I got to know Victor's nephew, and he is an agent at the William Morris Agency, which I didn't know what that was at the time, but the William Morris Agency was one of the most iconic talent agencies. They represented Marilyn Monroe. They go back to vaudeville years. Now it's known as WME with Endeavor, and Ari Emanuel runs it. But I didn't know what that was. And this was pre-internet, Limor. So it's kind of embarrassing to say this because I couldn't even look up the person I was meeting with online. I just knew he was a friend of my grandfather's, and he was an agent, and he was in music. And so I went in and I had a meeting, and I put on my Ann Taylor outfit. And at 23 years old, I wanted to look super professional. And I was very, I was like Reese Witherspoon's character in Election, if you ever saw that. I was very, yeah.
I love that. Where did you guys meet?
We met at the William Morris offices in Beverly Hills. And he said to me, and he was very nice, very grandfatherly with me. And he basically said, what do you want to do for a living? And I said, well, maybe I'm interested in voiceovers. Okay, I had no clue what I wanted, but I figure voiceover is easy. And he said, well, has anybody besides your mother told you had any talent? I was like, no, actually, nobody has. He said, well, why don't you work here? Work here as an assistant for 3 months. If you hate it, quit. By that time, you'll know enough people to figure it out. So in a strange turn of events, I didn't even know how powerful this man was because I couldn't have looked him up online before. He wasn't just an agent. It turns out he was on the board of William Morris. He was the worldwide head of music.
Wow.
He was a very significant man. And that is the first, and he sent my resume to HR. I had an interview, and really there was no reason they should have hired me other than I was nice, professional, industrious. And more importantly, the guy who handed the resume was a big shot. And so it matters who introduces you and brings you in. So I started working at William Morris as a temp. I ended up getting promoted and became an agent in the non-scripted reality TV department, working with writers, directors, hosts, and producers. And probably one of the most iconic people I was on the team for was Ryan Seacrest. And if we've got time, I'll tell you a great story about him. I like to be the one who tells positive stories about celebrities. I'll name drop a good story when somebody's done something really amazing. I want to amplify those types of stories.
I would love to hear a Ryan Seacrest story. Love to.
Okay. Well, it actually plays in, I'll get to it in a second, because it plays into the whole methodology of getting hired in Hollywood and how Ryan Seacrest, without even knowing it, through working with him, I recognized a pattern with him. And what happened with him is actually the framework that I used in my business now of My Grads Get Jobs. So I'll get to that in a minute. But I worked at William Morris as an agent. I then worked as the vice president of Tony Hawk's production company, 900 Films. And then I was a senior vice president at an entertainment finance company that bought back-end profit participations in TV and film. And it was originally funded by Mark Cuban. And my favorite part about working at that company is actually, Limor, that's when I met you, as I think I was still at Content Partners at the time. And, that was a company where I had to network. I was hired because of my network, because they needed somebody who knew different types of people in the entertainment business. I needed to know accountants, lawyers, business managers, hedge fund advisors, A-list stars and directors and producers and all those types of people. LawyerLimor, did you know that even at that last job, I put on so many presentations for MCLE credit? At some point, I was like, the state bar should admit me, because I can how many of these events I've been to.
You've probably done more than I have even.
I logged in a lot of hours, I'm not going to lie.
Man.
But while I was there, I got my dream job, which was working as an adjunct professor at USC. At that time, they were the #1 film school. They've dropped since then. But at that time, they were #1.
Who's the #1 now?
I think it's AFI.
Oh, wow.
I think
Okay.
it's AFI. I mean, I'm not going to say there's a correlation between when I taught and their ranking, but I am saying there is I'm not saying it's causal, but there's a correlation. I'm just teasing. But teaching at USC was hands down my favorite experience, because I was a guest speaker for many years, and I told them, I think you need to have a job, a class specifically, not just telling people how to use a camera and create a film and set up budgets and work with actors, but you need to show people how to get hired in their first jobs, because everybody thinks you just create a resume and you send it out and you apply. But I taught a 15-week course, 3 hours once a week at USC, to help prepare people to get hired. And so I absolutely loved it. I took the class from 25 students to over 100. It was a very popular class. But what I realized was, well, wait a second. I think that more people besides USC kids need to learn this. And so I launched my own business and created a framework and a methodology. And now I have a private coaching business. I have a course. And on special occasions, I get job postings from celebrities or companies that are looking for entry-level employees who are top notch, because I only know the best. Because the truth is, I don't do a lot of outward marketing. It's more like I'm just solidly in my space, and somehow, I don't know how it works, Limor, but I attract like-minded people who are smart, ambitious, hustlers, go-getters, and are nice, good people who want to work in one of these glamour industries.
It's really your personality. You really are a magnet. I'm not joking when I say when we met, it was like two magnets. We just saw each other and we were like, and it was automatic. And I think, I usually say this at the end, but if you are in any way interested in working in the entertainment space, you have to follow Krista, because she posts things that you will never get an in or have access to these opportunities unless, right? If you don't have the fancy connection, you need to know Krista, right? So that's what I think. That's what I've seen.
Well, thank you for that. And it's true, because you really only need one. Look, I only needed Mr. Rosenberg to get me into William Morris. It was one connection, and it came from my grandfather. And people are like, but I don't have any fancy connections. I go, well, do you have parents? Do you have a cousin? Do you have a grandfather? Like, these people want to help you. And nobody knows everybody in entertainment, but most everybody knows at least one person in the entertainment business. And those one opportunities can lead you to another, can lead you to another. But one of the things that I focus on is I focus on the individual. Who exactly are you? What exactly do you like to do? And when I hear what really lights somebody up, and not just what their parents want them to do or what they think is cool, I can usually pull that out, and I was like, okay, here's a job opportunity for you. And here's how you're going to go about it. Here's how we're going to language things. Look, you're a lawyer. Everything's about language. It's about the emphasis, the language, where you put the comma, what things really mean. Well, the same is true in getting a job. And you need to be able to phrase things in a way that is appealing. I mean, one of the biggest challenges I have with college students when they go into these interviews. They talk about how much they can learn from the experience and how much an opportunity is going to help them grow. I'm like, you're focused on the wrong thing. You're focused on your needs. Focus on the employer's needs. How are you going to help them be better? So it's not about you. And there's been something happening in society these last couple of years where it's so me focused. And I'm like,
Mhm.
we can't do that anymore. You have to be company focused. You have to be, how are you going to build a team? How are you knowledgeable about somebody else's business in a way that's going to help them elevate and bring in money? See, we've forgotten in all of our conversations that business is still business and it's about generating cash flow. And if you don't contribute to the bottom line, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how wonderful and what a nice person you are. It matters how you can contribute. But I show people how to reveal things about themselves in a job interview that will also make them attractive to the right job for them.
I love that because one thing that made me so when I was in law school, I wanted to go into the entertainment space. I wanted to be in-house at a studio. And then I started talking to the other kids who wanted to be in that space. And I was so turned off by their personalities. I felt like, oh, yeah, I felt like every single one of them just wanted to be a Hollywood star. It
Yeah.
didn't sound like they want to negotiate this and that. They just want to be a Hollywood star. And now, so long story short, then I was like, I don't want to be in this space because I don't want these people as my colleagues.
Right.
And then now what I kind of see online is people wanting to get in the space from the corporate world, but really then they want to talk about it on the internet to get followers and gain traction for themselves and do this and that. So, now when people say, "Oh, can I have a meeting with you to pick your brain?" which sounds like the type of intro you
Yeah.
had with Rosenberg, right? Which the old school type of picking your brain,
The
but
old school.
old school. So now it's kind of like, no, I don't really,
You don't have the
picking.
time for it, Lamore. You don't have, can I tell you, brain picking and coffee meetings are over. Okay,
They're
period.
over.
End of story. They are over. Now, what I mean by over is, look, you're sophisticated, Lamore. You've got a following. You know people. If you call somebody and ask to, pick their brain or get to know them, they're going to take your call. They will. So I don't mean coffee meetings are over forever, but when you are just entering the job force, if you reach out to somebody and, like, for example, I get this a lot, and I'm sure you do too. I used to get these LinkedIn requests, and they, said, "Oh, I want to work in entertainment. Do you know anybody that you can connect me to? Or do you know anything about such and such and such?" I was like, wow, you didn't even do your homework. I have a whole website. I have a whole business. I
Mhm.
have all these different, there are so many free resources. And if you don't do the bare minimum to look me up, why would I exchange my time for you? So when I say, so I tell these 20 somethings, don't put, it's the same way I feel about, interviewing for a job. Interviewing for a job and networking, it's the same thing. I do not want you to cast your net out wide. It is not a numbers game. Okay, it is not.
Mm.
Because just because you take 200 meetings or send your resume out to 200 opportunities doesn't mean that you're going to increase your chances of getting a special job. It might help you get a job, like just a regular job. So I don't know about that. I'm in the business of helping people get special jobs, or, not necessarily a job in Hollywood, because I don't think anybody's ever just looking for a job. They're looking for an opportunity where they can open up their network and learn more. So if you're that type of person, you want to focus on five. You want to focus on five people you really want to get to. And why do you want to get to them? What is it about something that's in their brain that you really want or need? And when I know who those five people are, I can talk to a client and say, okay, let's walk it back for a second. Here's what you need to say in your information, your email requesting an interview. Here, you have to demonstrate that you have passion about that person. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to connect with you, Lamore, and I was in college or I was in law school, or maybe I had just graduated, and I was like, oh my gosh, LawyerLimor is so famous. I follow her on TikTok. She's got like 500,000 followers, and she's so pretty and intimidating. Because I was like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to do this?
You've got the job. I'm pretty. You got the job. Love it. You're hired.
Okay, this is a sidetrack, but that's actually how I remember us talking at the Stacey Phillips event, because here we were at a luncheon and I was like, look how cute she is. I think you were like out of law school. You were like young and fresh and you had pretty hair. And we like sat down and chit chat. I think we talked about stupid like pop culture stuff and maybe music. It might have been Britney Spears. I don't know. It was something that was like frivolous and not important, but
Mhm.
because we didn't connect in our brains, we connected with our energies and our hearts. And I was
Yes.
like, I like her vibe. And then I
Yes.
told you that I liked Cuba Day. And you're like, how do you know about Cuba Day? I was
Yes,
like,
yes.
I love all the Middle East, every single country over there, anything that I can know more about. I love the warmth of the people. I love the aesthetic. I love everything about it. So it just started happening because there was a genuine curiosity, a genuine
Mhm.
interest, and just a genuine. And I think you were like, I think I was like, I don't know how I got invited to this event, Limor, but here I am. I don't even know, but I
And
showed up.
let me just say, this event, the way I was invited to this event, which is another networking thing that we've talked about, my friend works at the firm that Stacey Phillips at that time had just started working with. Right?
Oh,
Stacey Phillips, a big time family law attorney. They were starting the family law department at this firm. My friend told me about it, that she has this all women's luncheon. And I'm like, oh, you have to get me in. She's like, I'm sure like if you email her or something, she'll invite you. I don't know. And I'm like, okay. So I email Stacey Phillips. And when I say, listen, at that point, you're right. I was a newbie attorney. Okay. A decade ago, I was a newbie attorney. And Stacey Phillips is a name, if you are obsessed with this space, which I always have been, you've seen her name before.
and
So
you've watched
Stacey,
her on E. She was on specials on TV at E, and she was very open and nice. I knew her. I think I knew her nephew is how I got invited to that. But yeah,
I love it. See? And so you know her, and it's like, you know what? Let me just email her and see what happens. And she emailed me back. She put her assistant on copy and she said, sure, add Limor to the list, whoever the assistant was. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna go to this event. And I go, and were we already at the same table? Because I remember you switching seats and
I
you sat
switched.
next to me.
I switched and sat next to you. Yeah. You know why
Very
I did? See, and I remember this too, because I looked around see, and again, this is like a networking tip. I scanned the room just looking for people that I was like, okay, who looks like they're gonna have something that I'm interested in talking about, which I know, I'm sorry, we all have biases, prejudices, and they're not always bad. Okay.
Yeah,
They're
of
not.
course.
I
Mhm.
looked in a room for like, look, I think I was teaching at USC at the time. And I'm like, I like young people. I like young energy. I like vibrancy. And I looked around. I'm like, okay, she looks fun. I'm going to go sit next to her. And then we started chit chatting. Um,
It was perfect.
it was perfect. But you know what? You touched on something. And I'd like to honor Stacey Phillips for a second, because I think this is really true. And where we as women have a superpower. And
Mm.
I've just noticed it with women, maybe men have it too. But yes, Stacey Phillips is well known in the family law space. Was she intimidated by you? Nope. Was she intimidated by me? Nope. Because real women are not intimidated. They will invite you into the umbrella because they know when they help you, there's more to have. There's a seat at the table for everyone. So whenever people talk about women in business being catty, I'm like, no. I even tell my girls that I do private coaching with, look for somebody at a company who is 10, hopefully 20 years older than you, because it's those people who are going to look at you like a daughter, like a niece, like a little sister, and they're going to help you. They don't feel competitive with you. They're past that. Do you think Stacey Phillips cares one iota? No, she wants to lift everybody else up. And that's why she had those lunches, which I think is really, really good. But I also think it takes a lot of confidence to go to one of those things by yourself, not knowing anybody, and leaning into, I don't know anybody here. Do you? How'd you get invited to this event? I don't know. Like, Stacey, thank you so much for inviting us. Like, it was really lovely.
That's exactly right. And you know, the cattiness in the space, I'll tell you, I do see it. And once I see it, I'm
Mhm.
done.
Done.
I'm done trying to connect with this person, promoting this person, speaking to this person. It's just over. I mean, if you look in my email inbox, the most ridiculous things are said to me by older attorneys with
Right.
these little jabs. And it's like, wow, guess what you just did? If I am only 10 years in, you are 30 years in. guess what's not going to happen? I'm not going to give you those cases where I have vetted them and I know they might need a little bit more experience. They're more
Mhm.
complex. I refer cases out as often as I sign them up. Okay.
Yeah.
Always, always. You just completely burned that bridge and you're
Yeah.
never going to get a referral from me. I refer cases to everyone and you just will never get one. You
Yeah.
are not going to be known in these spaces and have a good reputation unless you are that type of person. And she just isn't. And I was so appalled by the email and I sent it to a few people and they're like, did you say something to her when you were in 4th grade? I'm like, hang on. You guys think, I mean, if this person remembers that,
No.
woo, psycho, like that doesn't make any sense. And I
Yeah.
just felt bad because I thought going into it, oh, we know each other.
This
So
is
it's
gonna
going
be
to be an
great.
even easier case. It's going to be so good, it's less stress, all of that. But you'll always find those people and they're not hard to identify. They're not hard, and then just kind of just cut them off. Not, you don't have to say I'm never speaking to you again or whatever it is. They're just not, people in your network. They're not of
You
any
just don't pay
value.
attention to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know because smart people know how to network
Mm.
graciously and it becomes easy. And what people forget though is yes, there is room at the table for everybody. And you have to know your competitors, right? You have to know
Mhm.
people in the same space because again, there might be somebody opposite counsel for you where if you've become friendly with them and you respect them, negotiating deals is a lot easier because they know what you're willing to give and take. You know what they're willing to give and take. You know how they operate. And it makes things a lot smoother. Relationships just make everything easier and better. They just do. I
That's
mean,
exactly
whether
it.
you're buying a car or negotiating with somebody that you know, if there is that common warm relationship with somebody, changes the dynamic completely. But even
100%.
getting back to our relationship as being
Yes.
an example of a lot of things, because I think this is a really good example, because networking is not transactional, meaning it's not a one-time event. You cannot rest on your laurels
Mm.
thinking, "Oh, I just met a fancy person and I've networked," right? That's not it. Networking is the art of building a meaningful relationship throughout time. You hope throughout the rest of your life. And even with that, it's like, okay, we have connected online and text messages and phone calls over the years. You support my business, I support yours. During COVID, here I had a business helping 20 somethings get hired in the entertainment business, and then all of a sudden March 2020 there was no business. I was like, what is going on? And I ended up creating a whole new business model. And I hosted these events called Coffee with KP, where I had group informational meetings with industry professionals about what they did, and how my 20 somethings can do it too. I sold tickets to it. I made it was a small grouping. And not only did you pay attention to this because you followed me on social media, you commented on a bunch of them. I was like, well, why don't you come? And I think did you attend the Mark Cuban one?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. So I was like, see that those relationships, you can't just if you had you been a stranger, that wouldn't have happened. But because we'd stayed on each other's radars over the years and we talked about personal lives, professional lives, networking is kind of a blurred line and it's a fine line between business and professional. Um, and I've always felt like you were always real with me. You'll always call something BS, as do I. Like
Yeah, we're the
I don't
same.
have a
We're
lot
the
of
same.
I don't have a lot of fakery in me. You will see it in my face. Um, but we've kept in contact over all of those years. And so we did it because we met at an event. We exchanged contact information. This was pre TikTok, pre social media. But when I saw you were on Instagram and then I saw you were on TikTok, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So we kept following each other. And then I see your fancy face on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. I was like, "That is Limor? Oh my gosh, this is wonder." Because I followed you on TikTok for it, but I didn't know you did the documentary. And so naturally, I did a TikTok about you. You didn't know it. I just posted it and then I told you after the
So
fact.
sweet.
But see, that is networking in the 2020s, right? And 2030s and 2040s of beyond. these are the channels to stay connected with people, because we no longer hand each other business cards, right? We follow people on digital platforms. And it's not just about following somebody, it's about engaging with somebody. It's about commenting. It's about saying, when you think, yeah, I don't have any fancy connections, I don't have anything to give. Yes, you do, because every single person can give a genuine compliment. Genuine though, no BSing or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
And whenever I meet somebody, I follow all their social media accounts, right? So like even in this call, I would love people to follow me on Instagram, and actually follow me on TikTok, Instagram, but more importantly, I've got a Substack that I'm doing now, and all my
Yes.
accounts are just my name, Krista Parkinson. Um, and uh, wait, where was I going with this? Where was I going with this?
Following each other. No more
Oh,
business cards.
okay, following each other. But there's one social media platform that I don't just accept people, and that's LinkedIn. I get a lot of, and I'll tell you why. I get a lot of requests wanting to follow me on LinkedIn, and I won't accept anybody unless I actually know them. And the reason is because people ask me for recommendations all of the time. And if they see somebody in common, my name lends a credibility to somebody. In entertainment, look, I'm not Oprah. It's not like I have a magic wand and knight everybody. Like, no. But in entertainment, I have a certain level of professionalism. And look, it's not always 100%. Just because I recommend somebody, they're still human. They can still screw up. They can still get fired. They can still not do their job. But I vetted them as much as I possibly can. So I don't ever connect with somebody on LinkedIn until after we meet. And so they might be a student or something else, but TikTok, please follow. But more importantly, it's Substack is where I am focusing my energies now, especially after that cyber security
Episode.
gentleman you had last week. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what am I going to do about my digital footprint?
Well, guess what? I just added to my list for the digital footprint. I'm about to go into my LinkedIn and take everyone off who I haven't actually met, because I think you're right. Seeing that connection, and a lot of people tell you, yeah, use LinkedIn like you use everything else nowadays. And no, I don't
No.
think that
Look,
that's the right way to do it.
no, LinkedIn is a special platform for that reason, because it is starting to get more like Facebook, where people are posting more personal stuff. But I still think this is your professional channel. This is where, who matters. And maybe if you're Ray Dalio, you've got a public page and you've got, 1 million followers, that's something different, right?
Right,
But
right.
but for my particular business and what I do now, I mean, I wouldn't accept somebody on LinkedIn, unless we've actually connected.
I love that. I love that. So tell me about your Substack, because I've heard of Substack, but I don't know that I'm on it or I follow anyone or anything like that. Tell me about that.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so first of all, it took me a lot of courage to get on Substack. So Substack is a platform for writers, and it's for writers to get paid for the work that they do. And you can have a free Substack. So anybody right now can sign up for my articles for free. But I discovered Substack. Gosh, this is taking us in a different direction, but it's something I'm passionate about. I discovered Substack because I stopped trusting mainstream media. I didn't know
Mm.
what I was looking at. I didn't know who was telling the truth. I didn't know what was going on. So one of my sources for information is Barry Weiss, who is a former New York Times reporter who started the Free Press. And the Free Press is a very balanced, smart. Barry Weiss is so smart. I mean, I did a TikTok about one of their articles too, about how to approach a cold email. They had something from it.
Ooh.
But anyway, so Barry Weiss in the Free Press is excellent. And I started finding writers and people that I thought were really interesting, who had maybe a contrarian voice or point of view about social issues going on. Right now, the Free Press, Barry Weiss, has been focusing so much on the Middle East in a way, and she is Jewish. She says that. So, but the way she's talking about things, my mind is blown. And I'm like, she's so smart. So I discovered Substack because of her. I saw her a lot on TV shows, and she was a contributor on Bill Maher, and she's got a great point of view. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I've had my newsletter for a while. let me put it on Substack so I can reach another group of people that are not just on the internet, but people who go to Substack. I guess it's kind of like what Twitter used to be, except instead of having just a short amount of characters, you write full articles. And I've noticed this for the entertainment space. So like in entertainment, the publications that everybody pays attention to are Variety, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter. Well, now there's another publication called The Ankler, Ankler. It's people who were formerly at Hollywood Reporter and Variety who started a page to talk about things that you can't really talk about when you have an advertising base. So they
Wow.
talked about the strike in a way that was more open and no BS. They talked about some of like you could find a lot of different writers on Substack who would present things that was like, wow, I've never really thought about that before. Because there are some things that I want to talk about on the hiring practices that I don't feel comfortable talking about on TikTok or Instagram because I'm like, no. I kind of need you to be some of my people to share some of these insights because the truth is, I don't want negativity. I really don't. I want people who really want to be on board my train. And for years, I've had a book unpublished. It's actually sitting on a file on my desk. And I've been afraid to publish it. And I've been afraid to go out there and I've been afraid to do that. And I was like, you know what? I can deliver it the same way on a Substack account and I can do it under a paid subscription. And, for right now, I've got it. It's so cheap. I mean, for the annual price right now, I'm doing a special for $35 to get an annual subscription. Not
Amazing.
only do you get my secrets and tips to getting hired in the entertainment business, I post articles twice a week. But for the past couple of years, I've had a course and it's called Get Hired in Hollywood. Anybody can look it up, gethiredinhollywood.com. And it is the framework and I call it my hired method, H period, I period, R period, E period, D period, hired method to getting hired in the entertainment industry. And it's 5 sections. It's 8 hours of instruction. I condensed all of my material into the most concentrated form. And I always thought I was going to want to do those classes live. But things changed and I realized I don't have the bandwidth to do it in the same way that I used to. And so until October 31st, anybody who signs up for my annual subscription, again, only $35. My course was $2,000. But only for $35. And they request it from hello@mygradsgetjobs.com. I will send them the recordings and I will send them the workbook. After on October 1st, and after that, it'll be $250 also on Substack. November 1st of 2023. Because I know these are going to live forever, Limor. So I want to make sure everybody knows it's within the very first couple of months of me starting this Substack that that's happening. But this is the framework to help you get hired in entertainment. And it's not about, sending out 200 resumes and getting only 2 responses, which are both rejections. It's about targeting the special opportunities that you want, meeting people within that company, preparing for what will make you the most desirable by asking people who actually work at the company. Like, I don't have all the secrets to getting hired at Paramount, but you know who does? The people who've actually been hired there. Mm-hmm. And I know those people, and I can tell you how to get connected with those people. And even in private coaching, depending on the kind of private coaching program that somebody works with me, there is a program that I have where I'll open you up to my network. And I will make those introductions, but it's after I've worked on your resume with you. It's after I've helped you clarify your career vision. It's after we've created a video cover letter and a written cover letter and gotten references and letters of recommendation. Like, it's a whole process. Because again, I take my reputation seriously. So I don't make introductions with people unless they're fully vetted. But I'm offering this now on Substack because I want to get rid of the noise. I want to be on a platform where people are signing up with me for free. And if they want something a little bit extra, they can get it with an annual subscription. And then after November 1st, the annual subscription is going to $80, but you won't have access to the course unless you get the $250 program. But my I sold a TV show years ago based on my life. And so part of the chapters in that book, I'm putting out on my Substack page. So I'm considering it like a digital book instead. And so, yes, I would love for all of your listeners to subscribe. And look, I just started it. And, every time you go on a new social media platform, you're like, oh, I'm starting from zero again. And it's so frustrating. But literally, after listening to your cybersecurity expert, I started thinking about things in a new way. And I was like, I have to be mindful of what is out there digitally. I mean, I put out a TikTok that got a lot of views, which was so exciting. And then some people took it in a negative direction, not that many, but enough. And I was like, why do I have hurt feelings? Like, this is insane. Strangers don't like me. What do I care? But then I did care. And I was like, I gotta either get thicker skin or do something. I mean, I actually got thicker skin because I kept the posts up. I mean, I kept things up, but
Listen, I take so many breaks because that stuff, it really, really gets to me. And I've said this before. I took basically a year off of TikTok and I was losing followers. And I posted here and there, but nothing like the Johnny Depp days, right? Like last year,
right.
nothing like that. And I used that time to nurture my real life relationships. That's when I met my now fiance. That's when, I did all of these different things. And getting back to TikTok, first of all, it's like, wait, how do I use the app? I don't even know. I had to like relearn it.
I remember when you said that. Yeah.
Right. And, when you talk about, sometimes you post things and listen, you and we're posting things with the intention to bring good into the world and be positive. And even when I cover stories that are, sad and depressing, divorce, it's not a fun thing to talk about, but the little pieces of the inner workings, right? That's what I want to teach people about. And to me, that kind of stuff is fun. But then big things happen in the world and you want to post about them. And then you think about, wow, this is going to live on the internet forever. Even if you delete it, it's going to live on the internet forever. It can go from TikTok to Reddit to an article on, some
Business
other.
Insider. Who knows?
Exactly. So what is your advice to those that you are coaching and anyone, these 20-year-olds, okay? Your advice to these 20-year-olds who are posting their opinions on controversial issues and the fact that their employers are also human, also have social media. Their employers are also nosy. They have HR teams that go online and check everything. What do you think about posting whatever it is on the internet that lives forever and being cautious about that? Trying to choose my words very carefully because you can tell I'm nervous about these topics.
Can I tell you, I'm so nervous about them too. And, I have a complicated relationship with social media because I want to get on it. And there is a definite correlation between my happiness and my vibrancy in real life versus how often I'm on social media. And I really do think it does something to your brain. Look, listen, I am living forever every single Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce post. But I was like, do I really need to spend an hour and a half falling in love with this love story? I'm like, I think this is emotional pornography. And I mean, and it's a great love story, but it's also not based in reality. None of us are Taylor Swift and none of us are this amazing football player. And it's fun in moderation. But when I tell my 20-somethings, because you'd be surprised how many 20-somethings aren't on social media.
I love to hear that.
Well, but I tell those kids, I go, set up an account right now because you need to not post your own stuff, but you have to be engaged in other people's. So I go, I don't care if you have like 10 followers, you have to be aware of what's going on in the world. So that is something I tell people to do right away. And I was like, look, I know you don't like it. I don't either. If I didn't have a business, I wouldn't be on social media.
Right. My personal account, Krista, has nothing on it. You followed me there before I had the LawyerLimor page, but there's nothing on there. I'm not even sure if anyone knows I'm engaged with them.
Well, I sure did. That was the most exciting and I'll tell you, but see, here's how social media is weird. Your fiance either posted something or said something, or you took something happened. And I was like, who is this guy? And I immediately went to his page, and his, what is that? His bio said something like, I'm Limor's #1 fan, or
President of the LawyerLimor fan club.
yeah. I was like, well, who is this man? I go, he is obviously smart. He obviously has good taste. I immediately liked him, and I think I followed him like
Oh, I love
you
that.
know. But I was like, but I got so excited from a personal level. So see, that's a positive, right? Because it opened up my mind to what's going on in your life. But at the same time, we can so easily get trapped into what other people think. And then
Mhm.
we somehow think we're an influencer or we're a celebrity. Because I'll give you an example right now. Everything that's going on in the Middle East, I'm a highly sensitive person. And I have to be careful in talking about this because I might start crying when I think about what's going on.
That's
And
amazing.
I have many friends, not only who are of, Jewish descent or Christian or Muslim, anywhere from the region, but very good friends who are Palestinian, Israeli, all matters. Okay, the truth is, I'm not educated enough to say anything about it on a public platform. I'm not a politician. I don't want to say the wrong thing and have it get misinterpreted. And you're like, how could that be misinterpreted? That's why I thought your words in the beginning were so great, because I have clients who they're one in particular whose brother-in-law is in Israel fighting right now. And so I'm
Mhm.
hearing in real time what he is experiencing in a way that I can't get from, traditional media. So I was like, I had to make a decision. Am I posting anything about this? The only thing I've ever posted was as a meme of a Jewish child and a Palestinian child from the back, and saying, I pray for the day that we wake up and we're in peace, because that's what I'm on. I'm on the side of humanity, and I'm on the side of peace. The intricacies of it are above my pay grade. And I don't want to jump into something that I am not well versed in and that I don't know about. It's the same reason you wouldn't put me in the driver's seat of a Ferrari. Do I know
Mhm.
how to drive a car? Yes, but I am incapable of being in a sports car that is low to the ground, and that it on the slightest tap of the accelerator, we're taking off. I don't have those skills. And what's happened is that particularly students who have signed declarations and have been protesting in the streets and have been very vocal on social media, we've seen some people have gotten their jobs revoked. There is a
Mm.
law firm that took back an offer because they did not want this person working for them. Now, some people say this is a free speech issue. I disagree. This is my point of view. It's not a free speech issue. It is an indication of how you're going to operate within a company. In the same way that years ago, I took my students to Paramount. And this was, I took them every year, but this particular year was probably 2017. And they talked about how my friend who runs a department at Paramount said they were hiring an intern. And so it's kind of it's below what she does, but she's like, whoever you guys like on the team, just check their social media and see if they're good. Well, they liked one girl in particular, and she was in a bikini on the hood of a car drinking a beer. And she did not get hired. And there was a lot of controversy in my class after we had this. And we had talked about it at Paramount, but when we got back to class, they're like, what's wrong with drinking a beer? She was 21. There's nothing illegal about being in a bikini. Like, what did she do that was so wrong? I said, what you need to understand is Paramount is a large organization. It is a worldwide studio. If you are casual with your own image, are you going to be as loose with the image of Paramount? It's a trustworthy issue. It is an issue of judgment. They always say that social media is, an indication, it's a reflection of your life. No, it's not. It's a reflection of your judgment of what you think is
Mm.
appropriate to post. So with the people that are signing, petitions and things online, Harvard, Penn, they've had millions and millions and millions of dollars stopped from funding because of the reaction to this. And I say, listen, whatever you say on social media, you need to be able to stand behind. And you
Mm.
need so whatever you're going to say, that's fine. But I caution anybody against saying something that you are not prepared to defend and really stand by. Because look, in one way, that might be great for you, because then, culturally, you're not going to fit with that company. So maybe you want to take a big public stand. CAA is in a lot of trouble right now because one of their big agents posted an Instagram post, and I don't even want to get into the details of it, but it was about what's going on in the Middle East, and it had a very swift reaction. She was the head of a department, was on an internal board at CAA, and this agent represents Tom Cruise and I think Meryl Streep, big entertainers, and it has a consequence. So my relationship to social media is complicated because one of the things, and this is why I'm on Substack and not X, formerly Twitter, because not everything is zeros and ones, black and white, good and bad. There are shades of gray, and there has to be space for nuance. And so if you are going to sign a petition, make sure that you are firmly, that you would put your face on that petition, that it's not mindless. And if anybody I used to tell my students, if you're embarrassed if you don't want your parents to see what you're posting, chances are pretty good you don't want your employer to see it too. But I take it a step further now, because you need to be really prepared to defend why that was so important to you to put out there. Because listen, nuance is lost. I mean, I have a lot of controversial point of views. One of those things is putting they, them on a resume. And I got into trouble with this years ago. Do you mind if I talk about this? I've never
love this.
Okay. So really, it's my advice, in putting pronouns on, do not put they and them. And it's not for reasons that you might think. I am not phobic in any way, shape, or form. Anybody can be whatever they want. But what you're describing is something that's on the inside, as opposed to being a physical form. And when you put that on a resume, you are indicating to people that you are focused on you. And again, not about the company at large. And this is really challenging for me because I had a student, gosh, I think it was in 2016 or maybe 2015. So it was a long time ago. And I watched this student, female, they, and then a couple of years ago, I think completely transitioned to male. I haven't kept up with this person for a number of years. But when I saw this person's resume, even as I'm talking about it, I say this person because I don't want to offend anybody.
Of course.
So with this person, this person said to me, here's my resume, and it said they, them. And I said, okay, listen, I know this is controversial, and this is before where we are today. But I said, I have something on my resume that's internal that I wish that nobody ever knew, but I have to put it on my resume, which is I went to Brigham Young University. That is a Mormon school. I was raised Mormon. I grew up Mormon. And at 30 years old, I decided it wasn't for me. For the rest of my life, it is on my resume. It is part of my identity. And I wish I could slough it off. I don't want to be affiliated. I don't want to have anything to do with it. But unlike a pronoun, I chose to go to a school when I was younger that I didn't know it would have ramifications. Have I been discriminated against because of it? Yes, I have. It was very difficult when I was a practicing Mormon and not drinking and not, some of my habits were different than other people, and it kept you on the outside. And if I could hide it, I would. When you put your pronouns on something, you might change your mind down the road. There might be people who will not hire you based on this one indication. Like some people I don't think would hire me because they're like, why would I want a Mormon on my desk? Like, why do I need somebody like this? Now, I think there are a lot of positives, but I think what comes to mind is, somebody's going to try to convert me, which I would not do, but I was a missionary. So somebody could think that I would do that. So again, if I were to post this on a TikTok or say, don't put your they, them on a resume, they would say, oh my gosh, she is phobic of this and a racist or whatever those horrible words are that I don't even want to give that much energy to. And then the reality is like, no, I don't want anything to prohibit you from getting hired. And what you're talking about is on the inside. It's not on the outside. My outside, there's nothing Mormon on me on the outside. I mean, the stereotype of being blonde, but other than that, no. So having, things that are controversial, I'm hoping that we get to a place where we're going to see nuance again. And you can't just swing far to the left, far to the right, black, white, whatever it is. There's some nuance and gray here. And so I encourage anybody that I'm working with to just be aware and have caution with what you post on social media. I mean, after your cybersecurity guy, sorry I keep bringing him up so much, but I mean, I was like, I don't think I want to like another post on social media unless it's on,
Ever.
I know, unless it's on Substack, because it's a contained community. And again, in the metrics, you can only allow paid subscribers to comment, or you can only, like, there are methods to do that, which I really like. And I like having a controlled environment for it, because again, it's not that I'm trying to hide anything, but I also know, it's such a politically hot climate. And I wish the climate change we would talk about is the emotional climate change and the emotional warming and heating up that we've seen. And that's what we need to cool down first. And I think in cooling that down a little bit, we might recognize there's not just the left or the right, but sometimes there's another point of view, which typically is mine, because I'm a little bit of a libertarian. My politics are practical. But those intricacies of, like, a human resource executive is not going to tell you that they're not hiring you because of something on your resume, because it opens up to controversy. But when someone tells me the story of how they interviewed, what they did, I can break it down for them, because I'm not beholden to a company. I'm beholden to the person who's paying me for private coaching to tell them the truth, and to take that truth and shape it to say, okay, if this is who you are, this is how you want to reveal it. But back to the story on they, them. So this person, when I made that comment and I shared, listen, I wouldn't do it because, listen, it happened to me. I'm Mormon, whatever. This person got hired at a company that I was consulting for. So I saw this person, I know, 4 years after the fact or whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you, because I genuinely really liked and care about this person. This person pulled me aside and wanted to educate me on what I said and how hurtful it was. I was like, wow, I have answered every phone call for this person. I have been responsive to emails, and I was like, I had no intentions to hurt, but my advice was cut off immediately from that, because I was like, I can't help somebody if they're going to find offense with what I'm saying when it was with the intention of helping. And the truth is, I don't know what's happened to this person. And I certainly wish this person well, but I was like, I didn't like the bite back. And it made me say, you know what? Like, I don't need to give of anything again and to be criticized when I was just trying to help. And, and I apologized. I said, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to upset or hurt you. And obviously you're thriving. And my advice to you was take it off, and you strongly put it on there, and good for you, because you whittled away all the people that wouldn't be attracted to your personality, your energy, your vibe, and what you could contribute to a company. So bravo to you for standing in your truth. You don't have to listen to what I have to say, but I felt a little bit of an ouch, because I'm like, I don't think anybody wants to be educated, especially hearing it from somebody 20 years younger. I'm sorry.
No, I'm with you. And I just take issue with the timing of that. I mean, they were offended however many years ago. Just that was the time to explain to you, listen, this is me. It's always going to be a part of me, even if I change my mind. So I want to hear from you. How can or where can I apply where this resume would shine?
And you know what? And it's so true, and it was so new at that time. And you know what? I say, wonderful, be exactly who you are, but don't criticize those who are just trying to help you, because I can't see it through her lens. I mean, him, they, her, I don't know. And the truth is, I know the pronouns have changed because a full transition took place, and now it's he. But from an employer's point of view, I don't want to care about your personal life. I'm not interested in anything that's going to take away from the work that we have to do. And something like that might be an indication that there could be care and concern for something that's internal and not contributing to the bottom line.
Right. You don't want to distract people.
No,
okay?
Don't distract people.
You want to, like you said, you want to let them know what you bring to the table that's going to benefit them. right? Because it's still a business, all of that. I always tell myself, and I've done this since I was younger, Krista, one day I am going to run for mayor of Beverly Hills. So everything I post on the internet, right, can come back to bite me in the behind. Because when I was younger, it was all of the one of the biggest controversies was Clinton and Lewinsky,
Right.
right? And it's like, oh my God, all these people knew her. There were cameras at my elementary school because she went to elementary school there. And it's like, oh my God, everything about you is going to follow you for the rest of your life. Then here comes the internet, right? And let me tell you, if I still worked at a firm and I wasn't solo, I wouldn't post a lot of the things that I post.
Correct. Same with me.
Right now, I want people to know I'm Jewish. I want people to know I'm liberal. I want people to know I stand behind Israel. I want people to know all these things. I want them to know that because I want to work with people who are aligned with me, right?
And LaMor, that's exactly my point. So even if somebody lifted this clip of me saying the no, they, them, and did not listen to the whole context of what I'm saying, you would say something's wrong with me. But ultimately, this person chose, and I believe it continues to work because they stood very strong in how they feel about something. But I also have to leave space for change. You brought up a great point with Monica Lewinsky because, again, I was working at William Morris at that time. There were so many Beverly Hills high school kids who worked with her or who knew her, and
Yeah.
I worked with her. My opinion of Monica Lewinsky at 23 and 24 years old was so harsh and sharp and terrible until what? 20 years later, I saw the Clinton affair on A&E. Completely changed my point of view. I was like, Monica Lewinsky was bullied. Who didn't protect this young girl? This guy was like the CEO of a country. Like, what has happened? And I was like, Monica Lewinsky, I want to know her now. I cannot believe what she went through. But again, time changes how you see things. And where you stand on an issue is based on where you sit at that time. My younger 23-year-old mind didn't understand things that my 40 something year old mind understands, right? Like you don't understand the same things. So I don't know how we got on this topic, but I get fired up about it, LaMor, because I want us to all be in a place where we can have opinions, we can agree, we can disagree, but where this notion came that we had to agree with everybody or take a stand on every issue or do, I don't want to be that anymore. Like there's got to be nuance to everything. There's got to be an openness. There's got to be a space to change your mind, right? I might feel
Absolutely.
differently about these issues 10 years from now. I don't know. But based on what I know right now, I focus on what I do stand for. And I have shared values, right? Like, I think you and I share values on a lot of stuff as
Oh,
we've talked
yes.
over the years, right? We value truth. We value, look, you're an advocate for your clients. I'm an advocate for my clients. These are shared values in that not everybody can do things on their own. And I think we need to just really have a lot of space and a lot of grace for that.
I think that's 100% right. And I think that we all need to be more mindful and thoughtful and open because there are also some issues where you might think you know everything and
Right.
you just don't, right? Anything I knew about the writer's strike was just things that I would see here and there, and someone would comment something or post something interesting. I would click on it and I would go on your page.
Yeah.
Every single story had these details that I never even thought twice about. I supported the movement. I knew that because we've had writer strikes before, and
Yeah.
I knew it had to be an extension of what's happened in the past. And obviously, I'm always going to be on that side.
And I'm always
But,
going to be on the artist side.
right,
However, yeah.
right. Then I see things on your page and I'm like, oh my God, and this is happening, and that's happening, and they struck a deal, but it doesn't mean they really struck a deal because no one's put pen to paper yet. So we're still waiting, but that doesn't mean they're not on strike. It's this whole thing.
Yeah.
And you have to go to the places where you can get the knowledge too. It's not just seeing this comment, seeing that you have to do more work to understand things beyond the headlines and, the controversial posts even.
And it's interesting because there's so much wealth of information out there. And now now it's more incumbent upon us to well, where are we getting our news information? Who
Mhm.
are we listening to? What I found most interesting about the writers' strikes and the actors right now too, I find it very interesting that you hear the writers doing all the talking and the actors doing all the talking. But in reality, when they do a deal, they have the lawyers do the talking.
Mm, mm.
And I think that the writers and the actors needed to stop talking and let the lawyers and the advocates behind the scenes do it, because no great decision has ever happened by committee. Big decisions happen in small rooms with people who understand and represent the voice of the people. So I was like, gosh, like take the cue from the smart guys, like the lawyers and guys, girls. That's not a gendered thing, but take a cue from the smart people. I was like, I did not see lawyers posting on social media because what does a lawyer do? I mean, because you are one. If there's a big negotiation happening, you tell your client to zip it.
Mhm.
Do not say anything. Do not do anything. You are not to, like, I don't care how upset you are. Those big multi-million dollar deals, that Shonda Rhimes has received, or Kenya Barris, or J.J. Abrams, or uh, who's that guy? I'm thinking I can totally see his face from American Horror Story, Ryan Murphy. I mean, these people, they don't make their own deals. They have their lawyers do them. So why didn't they use that same paradigm in the strikes? I didn't understand that. Why did they
Great
take to
point.
social media to air out every grievance? I don't think that was a smart move, because something that people didn't talk about in that is that during when we're on strike here in America. Okay. And I know this because I talked to an agent at one of the big agencies who said, gosh, I can't have an American do a deal at Apple, but all my clients in India are making deals with Apple and Netflix, and other countries can make deals with these streamers. But what we did as a society, an American society, we put pause. We put pause on
Mm.
our work. We put pause on our culture. Like, that's the part about entertainment in Hollywood that this is why I'm still, I feel like it's so important, is because it's our cultural channel. And we hit pause on everything. We're still on pause because we've got the actor strike. But again, I'm not one to talk about all the details because I don't know the finer points. I'm just saying, on a macro level, there's been a major shift in Hollywood. It's been happening for a while. These strikes have kind of shed light on some of the cracks. And look, I'm glad the writers are happy with their deals, but to at what cost? I mean, you had over 100 days of people not working, and even ramping back up again is very challenging. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant, Lamore. I apologize.
No,
I
no.
haven't been able to talk about this like in a way other than with one-on-one clients.
Right. No, I know. And, I commend you for always making sure you know the facts if you do speak on something, right? So in the entertainment world, it goes back to, where you started and where you are now. And so, the progress these artists have made and what would actually get them to the next place, because when we have these different mediums and they're ever changing, and we have all of these different platforms coming up. And then we have the big players and the small players. I mean, deal making is nothing new. There is a way to do it. Getting a job, right?
Right.
I think what's lost on some people, especially the 20 somethings, is you it's not another 20-year-old hiring you most of the time.
Right. Right.
Okay? So, listen, would this, that, or the other on your resume distract your dad? If it'll
Yes.
distract your dad, just don't put it on your resume. It's not about who you are and what you want to show and all of that. A resume serves a specific purpose.
Yeah.
Answers in a job application serve a specific purpose. You need to get in, and you are still who you are, and the things that maybe you've taken off or kept on or whatever are still true to you. And with you, I see that you continue to educate yourself in this space. And I know we talked about, you went on to a conference, the All In Podcast conference, which was something, Krista, I had never heard about. And when I looked it up, I was kind of disappointed in myself that I hadn't heard about it, right? Like I'm thinking, I want to be at these events. And tell us about it, because now you it was about a month ago now, right?
Oh my gosh. Okay. The All In podcast, once again, it goes back to news sources, right? And where you
Yes.
get your news source. And the All In podcast are 4 tech billionaires. They are 4 guys who make
Billionaires with
B with the
a
B, billion,
B.
B. And it's very interesting because out of the 4 of them, they are politically different. You know, some are American, one is from Canada and of Sri Lankan descent. They just have a very interesting way of viewing the world, but they do it through the lens of business. But they talk about politics and all and business things. The way they talked about colleges and universities, that's where I really glommed onto them because I was like, it's my view of universities as well. Talk about the hypocrisy of Hollywood. Really, I got to just get this in, Limor, because this is really true. I do not think a college degree should be required in Hollywood anymore. Period, paragraph, end of story.
I love it.
Because you know, you are the Hollywood industry is an apprentice business, meaning you're working for somebody for 2 to 4 years as an assistant before you ever get promoted. Assistants make $18 to $22 an hour when they first start in the business. Okay. That's 4 years of learning. Why do you need a college degree to take phone messages and to learn the players and to really kind of learn a trade? It makes no sense to me. So I wish Hollywood everybody's always talking about college debt and should the government pay for it and all this. I say no. Universities are sitting on billions of dollars. They could give student relief. It doesn't need to come from the government. The universities can do it, but better yet, not every major should be valued in the same way for the same tuition fee. And Hollywood should get rid of even having to have graduated from college. It should be additive. But even when you work at when you take classes, the reason why my business has been successful is because they don't teach what I teach you about how to actually get hired in Hollywood, and your degree should actually help you get hired because the Career Center doesn't have the time or the bandwidth to give attention to every single one of those individuals. But there's another way to do it. But anyway, that was beside the point. What were we talking about? I had to just get that point
All in conference.
Oh, All In podcast. So they're contrarian thinkers too. And so they had this All In summit, which was basically it's like what the TED conferences probably started out as, where you had the best and the brightest. The All In podcast was mind blowing. First of all, you had to submit an application. I submit two. I made each one different because I was like, what's actually going to get me in? Because I was like, I have to be at this conference. They had it at UCLA Royce Hall. I think there were 17 to 1,800 people at the conference.
Wow.
They got 4,000 applications. So I had to I was more excited when I got the notification that I was accepted than I did going to college. Because I was around the smartest people that there were. So
you have to be in those rooms. You have to be in those rooms.
You have to be in those rooms. So you had the 4 guys talking about things, but actually this is the biggest takeaway because you can go onto the All In podcast and see all the different speakers. I'm telling you, it's different in the room than it was on video. You still get the same information, but the energy and the electricity in the room was, I desperately want to go again. I hope I would get accepted to go again. But they had speakers like Ray Dalio. They had Elon Musk. Shockingly, Gwyneth Paltrow was a speaker and didn't really talk much about Hollywood, which I thought was fascinating because while Hollywood is really focused on the breadcrumbs and how to fight over the breadcrumbs, they've lost the plot at digital and new media. We had Mr. Beast come and speak to us. Frankly, I didn't know who Mr. Beast was. And so I am over the age of 16 years old, is what that tells me. But I had to learn about Mr. Beast. And he has 150 million followers on YouTube. He's got basically his own Paramount Studios in North Carolina. His budgets, I think that he said that he spends $2 million on his videos. That's an enormous budget. Okay.
What?
So here's what I'm saying. Hollywood, people that want to work in Hollywood, why aren't we going to digital? But people will say, well, because people aren't watching scripted TV or full length movies just strictly on YouTube. And then my rebuttal to that is, then why are you so upset with your business partners like the CEOs? You've got to have respect for their business acumen in the same way you want respect for your creative ideas and juices. Like there's a business, because if it were so easy for them to distribute and monetize creative product, it would have already been done on YouTube.
That's
But it's
exactly
not.
right.
There was another side to the CEOs, because I'm like, creators, do you understand how hard this is? But the bigger point being, why aren't you all doing what Mr. Beast is doing? He's making a killing. And it was incredible to talk to listen to him talk about ideas. They talked about cultural issues. They had a guy with a new book. I actually did a post on it. So you could go to my Instagram page and you can see the list of all the speakers and what they talked about. We talked about science. I didn't know that that right now blindness in children can be cured by gene editing. They had this medical doctor talking about it. It
Wow.
was extraordinary. But it made me very excited to be in a room full of fascinating, interesting people. But I'll tell you what, it was very challenging to network at an event like this. Because from a
Okay.
certain point of view that you're not going to hear from anybody else. You're with the best and the brightest, but there were no mechanisms set up for people to actually meet each other. It was very difficult, particularly for a woman, to approach a man at an event like this, because again, it's not like everybody's in college, right? Most of the people there are married, and striking up a conversation and for me as a woman to approach a married man, I feel maybe I'm too traditional, but I feel like it's inappropriate and I don't want to do that. And it's a little uncomfortable. I mean, so I sat next to some people where, I started talking to some interesting people on both sides of me. And I loved it when a man immediately, when I saw his computer screen, it was a picture of his wife and kids. But it was like, okay, well, we're not all in the same business in this room. Like, we don't really know how are you supposed to network and break the ice with different people in a room like this? It was it was extremely challenging. For being a networking expert, I found I couldn't get my footing at that conference. I had the hardest time getting my footing there, because it's not like we were some cerebral people. I wouldn't say social skills are high on their list, which is a weird.
That's a great point.
I mean, it's really not. And so I'm glad they've all had, wives and partners, which is great. But the mentality of actually reaching out and talking to people was very challenging. I mean, look, I even wrote in and did a survey to the All In podcast. I don't know if they ever saw it or if they care, but you have to have something to break the ice in a room like that. And I learned something very important from author Cal Fussman, who also has a podcast called Big Questions with Cal Fussman. He was a writer. He wrote a book on Muhammad Ali. He wrote a book with Larry King. But he's an interviewer. He wrote for Esquire magazine for years. And what he talks about was when you are trying to break the ice with people, you can't ask questions that go to the head. You have to ask questions that go to the heart. So what's an example of this, right? And this is what I found going to the All In Summit. Okay, what do you talk to somebody about? Well, you can talk about what they're eating, or you like their watch, or you can talk about the speakers. Oh my gosh, my battery is going to go dead on my computer in a second.
Give us 3 more minutes. 3 more minutes.
Okay, I hope it doesn't log out, because I've got my light and my microphone hooked up to this. But you have to break the ice through something else. So at this podcast, people are like, oh, well, what do you do for a living? Well, people are like, oh, I am a hedge fund investor, or I'm investing. Like, there was no common ground for me to even get in on that, because it was just too hard. But what you need to ask is a question that goes to the heart, which is maybe like, what is the best advice your parents ever gave you? Or, what was the most compelling, what is the biggest takeaway you got from Elon Musk's talk? Or when the woman spoke about women playing games of strategy like poker and chess, what really resonated you the most? Now, if you have people who are people like me, they can come up with a story. But sometimes it's very difficult to come up with something with another human being unless they've got unless there's a framework and a structure for it. So the podcast was extraordinary. The people were extraordinary. My lament was, I didn't know how to talk to people without some kind of framework to make that happen. It's kind of like when people are like, oh, you're single, they're single, you guys should connect. That's how I felt at this conference. Oh, you're a smart person, you guys should connect on something. Well, it doesn't really work that way. You have to have something other than like an icebreaker game of some kind.
Right. I mean, I'm such a nerd. I love those like conferences. I love lectures. I love, and sometimes you meet people, sometimes you don't. Sometimes the space is made for that, built for that. And sometimes it's not. You're just going to get, absorb whatever
Knowledge.
information is there. And a lot of those events are sometimes just their egos.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we're sitting there just learning.
Can I tell you what though? And again, I don't know if they'll ever take my suggestion or even read my card, but I was like, no, this needs to be the new TED conference. This needs to be like a master's degree program. There needs to be a certification for this, because I'm telling you, I learned so much information. I had my notebook full of things. I've re-listened to the talks because they were that compelling. I was like, this is extraordinary. I mean, that's how I felt about a lot of MCLE events, is I learned a lot. And I mean, sure, some of them are boring and some people are just doing it to check the box. I had to be there for different reasons, but I love to learn. I love ideas, and I love being around smart people.
And that's why you are such a enormous asset to your community. And listen, Krista Parkinson is your fancy connection to land your dream job. Follow her everywhere at Krista Parkinson, especially your Substack. I'm going to put all of the information in the show notes. Anything else, Krista? I know you have the private coaching. I know you have the course.
And you can find that on TikTok. You can just go to my link tree on TikTok. And if you want to set up, if you're not sure how your resume looks, I've got a 40-minute resume review. It's a mock interview where I can give you feedback that an HR professional is not going to give you. They're not paid to give it to you. And if they say something—
No brainer. Come on. Krista, I love you. An hour and 20 minutes. I'm shocked it wasn't 20 hours. Love you. Bye.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed on this podcast are not legal advice that can be relied on. They are based solely on the limited information provided. These opinions do not create any attorney-client relationship. Those seeking legal advice should contact an attorney in the appropriate jurisdiction and practice area.